You should check his social media. He's hiding something from you. The anonymous message flashed across Emily Carter's phone screen, sending a chill down her spine. Sitting alone in her dimly lit living room, she hesitated before clicking on her husband Ryan's profile. They had been married for 10 years, built a life together, and faced their share of struggles. But lately, something felt off. Ryan had been distant, coming home late with vague excuses. His phone, once left carelessly around the house, was now always locked. Emily wanted to believe it was just work stress, but the message said otherwise. With trembling fingers, she tapped on his profile. And then, her world shattered. There it was, a wedding picture. Ryan, in a sharp navy blue suit, standing beside a woman in a white gown. The caption read, "The start of Forever Red Heart, #married life." Emily's breath caught in her throat. The date of the post was just 3 days ago. Her husband, the man she loved, had married another woman. Her vision blurred as rage and confusion took over. Was this a joke? A cruel prank? No. Ryan's arm was wrapped tightly around the woman, his smile beaming with joy. He had moved on, while still being married to her. Emily's hands clenched into fists. Her mind screamed for answers. Who was this woman? How could Ryan do this? And most importantly, what was she going to do next? Because one thing was certain. Emily wasn't going to stay silent. Emily's hands trembled as she stared at the wedding photo on Ryan's profile. 1,000 thoughts rushed through her mind, but none of them made sense. This had to be a mistake. Ryan wasn't perfect, but he wasn't cruel. He wouldn't betray her like this, would he? Her heart pounded as she scrolled through the comments beneath the post. Dozens of people had congratulated them, friends, colleagues, even Ryan's own family. You two look perfect together. Wishing you both a lifetime of happiness. Such a beautiful couple. Finally tied the knot. Emily's stomach twisted. Finally? She clenched her fists, feeling her nails dig into her palms. Ryan had been planning this. While he came home to her every night, kissed her goodbye in the mornings, and promised he was just busy with work, he was building a new life with someone else. She needed answers. Without thinking, she dialed Ryan's number. The phone rang once, twice, then straight to voicemail. Her breath hitched. Did he block her?
No.
No, that wasn't possible. Maybe his phone was off. Maybe he was. Her thoughts screeched to a halt as a realization hit her. What if he was with her right now? Emily grabbed her car keys and rushed out the door. Ryan's secret life. 20 minutes later, Emily's car came to a halt outside Ryan's office. She gripped the steering wheel, trying to steady her breathing. Ryan's car was parked in its usual spot. He was here. She marched inside, her heels clicking against the marble floor of the high-rise building. The receptionist, a young woman with dark-rimmed glasses, looked up and smiled. "Mrs. Carter, I didn't know you'd be coming in today." Emily forced a polite smile. "I need to see Ryan." The woman hesitated. "Oh, he's not here." Emily's pulse spiked. "What do you mean?" "His car is outside." The receptionist glanced at the computer screen, biting her lip. "Well, he left early today. Said he had a personal engagement." Personal engagement? Emily swallowed the lump in her throat. She turned on her heel and stormed out of the building. Where was he? Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone and typed Ryan's name into Google. Her fingers hesitated before pressing search. Seconds later, an article from a local wedding blog popped up. Inside the lavish wedding of businessman Ryan Carter and Sophia Reynolds. Emily felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She clicked the article, her heart racing. A gallery of photos filled the screen. Ryan slipping a ring onto Sophia's finger, kissing her under a floral arch, dancing with her in a ballroom. Emily couldn't breathe. It was real. Tears blurred her vision, but something else caught her eye. The date. The wedding had taken place 2 days ago, while Ryan was still married to her. A cold wave of fury washed over Emily, overpowering the heartbreak. She had spent years devoted to a man who had tossed her aside like she was nothing. She wiped away her tears. Ryan Carter was going to regret this. Because Emily wasn't the type of woman to be forgotten. Emily gripped the invitation in her hands, staring at the gold-embossed letters that spelled out a name she had never heard before. Sophia Reynolds Carter. Her stomach twisted. The woman who had stolen her husband now shared his last name. The invitation had been tucked inside Ryan's briefcase, which he had carelessly left in their home. The home they shared. The home where he had kissed Emily goodbye every morning while secretly planning a new future with someone else. Her grip tightened around the paper, her fingernails pressing into it. She had to see this woman. She needed to know who had replaced her. Face to face with betrayal. 2 days later, Emily sat in a corner booth at La Belle Café, a cozy but upscale spot in the city. Her fingers tightened around the warm coffee cup as she watched the door. She had spent hours digging through social media, scrolling through photos of Ryan and Sophia. A beautiful woman with soft blonde curls and ocean blue eyes. Elegant. Perfect. The complete opposite of Emily. When Emily had messaged Sophia using a fake profile, she hadn't expected a response. But to her surprise, Sophia had agreed to meet, thinking she was a wedding planner interested in featuring their story in a magazine. Emily's pulse quickened as the cafe door swung open. And then there she was. Sophia Reynolds Carter walked in, dressed in a pale pink dress, her heels clicking against the floor. She was stunning in a way that made Emily's throat tighten. The kind of woman who turned heads effortlessly. But as Sophia approached, something in her expression caught Emily off guard. She looked nervous, almost hesitant. Emily stood, offering a forced smile as Sophia sat down across from her. "It's nice to meet you," Sophia said, her voice soft. "I was surprised when you reached out. Ryan usually doesn't like discussing his personal life in the media." Emily's stomach churned at the mention of his name, but she kept her voice steady. "I can imagine. So tell me, how did you and Ryan meet?" Sophia smiled, a hint of fondness in her eyes. "It was unexpected, really. We met at a charity gala last year. He was so kind, so attentive, and after everything I'd been through, I never thought I'd find someone like him." Emily felt a sharp sting in her chest. Last year? So Ryan had been seeing her for months, while still married. Sophia sighed. "To be honest, I was hesitant when he proposed so soon. But he said he had moved on from his past, that he was free to love again." Emily's fingers clenched beneath the table. Free to love again? Her heart pounded as she realized something Sophia didn't know. She wasn't a mistress who had knowingly stolen a married man. She was just another woman caught in Ryan's web of lies. Emily's anger flared, but not at Sophia. At Ryan. He hadn't just betrayed Emily. He had lied to Sophia, too. Taking a deep breath, Emily leaned forward, looking the woman in the eyes. "Sophia," she said carefully, "what if I told you? Ryan isn't who you think he is." Sophia blinked, confusion flickering across her face. "What do you mean?" Emily reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and slid it across the table. On the screen was a wedding photo. Emily and Ryan's wedding photo. Sophia's face paled as she stared at it. Her hands trembled as she picked up the phone, her breath hitching. "Dubbage, what is this?" she whispered. Emily's voice was cold and steady. "It's proof that Ryan Carter is still married. To me." Sophia's face drained of color as she stared at the wedding photo on Emily's phone. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Emily watched as the shock spread through Sophia's body, her breathing shallow, her fingers trembling as she placed the phone back on the table like it was something poisonous. This has to be fake," Sophia stammered, shaking her head in disbelief. "Ryan would never." Emily let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, he would. And he did." Sophia swallowed hard, her eyes flickering between Emily and the phone screen. "This can't be happening." Emily leaned forward, her voice calm but sharp. "I've been married to Ryan for 10 years. You've been his wife for what? A week. You're not the first woman he's lied to, and you won't be the last." Sophia's hands curled into fists on the table. She looked like she wanted to argue, to fight against the truth that was unraveling before her. But then she did something Emily didn't expect. She grabbed her purse and stood up. "I need to go." Emily watched her, waiting for the anger, the denial, but it never came. Instead, Sophia's eyes filled with unshed tears as she whispered, "I need to talk to him." Emily smirked. "Good luck. He's a professional liar." Sophia hesitated, then rushed out of the cafe, her heels clicking against the pavement. Emily sat back in her chair, exhaling sharply. She had expected drama, screaming, maybe even an argument. But Sophia's reaction had been quiet, controlled, almost like she was afraid. And that made Emily uneasy. Ryan was a liar, a cheater, a manipulator. But what if there was more to his second marriage than just betrayal? Emily's instincts screamed that something bigger was at play, and she was going to find out what. A web of secrets. That night, Emily sat on her bed, scrolling through Sophia's social media. The woman had been private about her life before Ryan, no personal posts, no pictures of family or past relationships. Just polished, professional shots from social events. Almost like she was hiding something. Emily frowned. Was Sophia as much of a victim as she seemed? Or was she playing a game of her own? A sudden knock at her door made her jump. She glanced at the clock. 11:47 p.m. Who would be at her door this late? Heart pounding, she grabbed her phone and walked cautiously to the door. Peeking through the peephole, her breath caught. Sophia. Emily hesitated before unlocking the door. As it creaked open, she was met with Sophia's pale, tear-streaked face. "Can I come in?" Sophia whispered. Emily stepped aside silently, watching as Sophia entered her home, the home Ryan had abandoned. As Emily shut the door, she turned to face the woman who had unknowingly married her husband. And in that moment, she realized something. Sophia wasn't just another victim of Ryan's betrayal. She was running from something, and Emily was about to find out what. Emily folded her arms as she studied Sophia, who stood in the center of her living room, arms wrapped around herself like she was freezing. Her blonde curls were slightly disheveled, her mascara smudged beneath her eyes. She looked terrified. Emily exhaled sharply. "What are you doing here, Sophia?" Sophia's lips trembled before she spoke. I didn't know where else to go." Emily raised an eyebrow. "What about your husband?" The word dripped with sarcasm. Sophia flinched. She ran a hand through her hair, her fingers trembling. "I confronted Ryan. I asked him if it was true, if he was still married to you." Emily's heart pounded. "And—" Sophia swallowed hard. "He didn't even deny it." A cold shiver ran down Emily's spine. "He just looked at me," Sophia continued, her voice cracking. "And then he said, 'I told you not to ask questions you don't want the answers to.'" Emily's blood went cold. Ryan had always been manipulative, always twisting the truth. But this was different. Sophia inhaled sharply. "Then he told me to forget about it. He said none of it mattered. That we were married now, and the past didn't exist." Emily's fists clenched. "And you just walked out?" Sophia shook her head, her eyes darting toward the window as if expecting someone to be watching. "No. I ran. Because, Emily," her voice dropped to a whisper, "I think Ryan is dangerous." Emily's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Sophia hesitated before pulling out her phone and scrolling through her messages. She turned the screen toward Emily. A single text from an unknown number glowed in the dim light. "You should have listened. Now it's too late." Emily's breath caught. "Who sent this?" Sophia shook her head. "I don't know. But I think someone is watching me." A heavy silence filled the room. For the first time, Emily realized she wasn't just dealing with a cheating husband. This was something bigger. Something darker. And if she wasn't careful, she and Sophia might not make it out of this alive. A shadow in the night. A sudden noise outside made both women freeze. A soft tap, tap, tap against the window. Emily's stomach twisted as she turned her head slowly. The curtain swayed slightly as if something, or someone, had just moved past the glass. Sophia let out a shaky breath. "Did you see that?" Emily nodded. Her body tensed as she grabbed the closest thing she could, a heavy lamp from the side table. She stepped toward the window, her pulse hammering. With one quick motion, she pulled back the curtain. Nothing. Just darkness and the faint reflection of their own fearful faces staring back at them. Emily turned back to Sophia. pack a bag. You're not staying at your place tonight. Sophia's eyes widened. Where are we going? Emily's jaw tightened. To find out what the hell Ryan is hiding. Sophia paced anxiously in Emily's living room as the minutes seemed to stretch on forever. The two women had packed a small bag, ready to leave at a moment's notice, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The shadow outside the window earlier had been too quick, too deliberate. Emily knew she had to act fast. Ryan's silence and the mysterious warning text from an unknown number only added to her sense of urgency. If someone was really watching Sophia, they were playing a game, and Emily was about to break the rules. She turned to Sophia, who was sitting on the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The tremor in her fingers was impossible to ignore. "Are you okay?" Emily asked, her voice softer than before. Sophia nodded but didn't speak. She hadn't been able to stop shaking since her confrontation with Ryan, and now, the fear of the unknown had begun to take over. "You're not alone in this," Emily said, sitting down beside her. "I'll help you. But I need you to tell me everything you know about Ryan, no matter how small it seems." Sophia hesitated, her eyes flickering with doubt. But finally, she let out a shaky breath. "Before I met Ryan, I didn't know who he really was." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I didn't know he was married to you. I didn't know anything about his past." Emily's heart sank. She had suspected as much. Ryan had always been so good at creating a facade, hiding the truth in plain sight. But Sophia had been drawn in by the illusion of the perfect man, just like Emily had once been. "Do you know where he goes when he disappears?" Emily asked. "Does he have any places he frequents?" Sophia bit her lip, her mind racing. I've seen him meet someone at an old warehouse on the edge of town. It's an abandoned building. No one ever goes there. I thought it was just for business." Emily's eyes narrowed. A warehouse? It didn't sound like a place for business at all. More like a place to hide. She stood up suddenly. "That's it. We're going to find out what he's been hiding." The warehouse. The streets were eerily quiet as Emily and Sophia drove through the dimly lit city, the only sound being the low hum of the engine. Sophia's directions had led them to a decrepit part of town, where the buildings seemed to lean over the narrow streets like silent witnesses to forgotten secrets. They arrived at the warehouse, a massive structure with boarded-up windows and rusted gates. The place looked abandoned, yet something about it felt alive with tension. Emily's heart raced. Was Ryan here? Was he meeting someone else? Or was he hiding something even darker than betrayal? Sophia clutched her purse tightly, glancing at Emily with a mix of fear and uncertainty. "Are you sure about this?" Emily didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped out of the car and motioned for Sophia to follow her. They moved quickly, staying in the shadows as they approached the entrance of the warehouse. The heavy metal door was partially ajar, just wide enough for someone to slip through unnoticed. Emily grabbed the handle, her pulse pounding in her ears, and slowly pulled the door open. The sound of rusted metal scraping against metal echoed in the still night air. Inside, the air was thick with dust. The faint scent of oil and decay lingered in the shadows. They moved cautiously, the silence between them deafening. And then they heard it. A voice. Faint at first, but unmistakable. Ryan's voice. The confrontation. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she motioned for Sophia to stay behind her. They crept further into the warehouse, following the sound of Ryan's voice, which grew louder with each step. As they rounded a corner, they saw him. Ryan stood facing another man, his back to them. He was laughing, a glass of what appeared to be whiskey in his hand. The other man, much taller and broader than Ryan, seemed to be listening intently. Emily's blood ran cold as she took in the scene. Ryan didn't look like the man who had just been hiding a secret marriage. He looked different. He wasn't talking about love or family. He was talking about something else. "We'll need to move quickly," Ryan said, his tone low and urgent. "The plan is in motion." Emily's starting to get suspicious, but we can keep her distracted. The man nodded. "Are you sure she's not onto you?" Ryan chuckled darkly. "She's too blinded by her own anger. She won't see what's coming." Emily's heart stopped. "She won't see what's coming?" Ryan wasn't just betraying her with another woman.
He was planning something.
Sophia's hand gripped Emily's arm, her voice barely a whisper. I think he's talking about me. About us. Emily's mind raced as she processed Ryan's words. He wasn't just playing a game with her marriage. He was plotting something bigger, something dangerous. Before she could react, Ryan turned, his eyes widening when he saw Emily standing in the shadows.
Caught.
Ryan's eyes locked onto Emily's, his face going pale. For a brief moment, he looked like a man caught in the act, something Emily hadn't seen in years. The charming facade he had carefully built around himself cracked, revealing the guilt beneath. Emily, what are you doing here? Ryan's voice was strained, trying to mask the panic rising within him. But Emily wasn't fooled. The shock and fear in his eyes were all too real. He was hiding something, a secret so big that even he couldn't contain it any longer. Sophia stepped forward, her voice shaking. What is this? What's really going on, Ryan? Ryan turned to face her, his expression hardening. Sophia, this isn't what it looks like. No, Emily said, her voice cold, cutting through the tension. This is exactly what it looks like. The lies, the secrets, the manipulation, it's all been for some bigger plan. Isn't it? Ryan swallowed, trying to steady himself. His gaze flickered between the two women.
You don't understand.
This wasn't part of the plan. I never wanted either of you to get hurt. Don't lie to me, Emily snapped. You've been playing us both, and I'm done. Ryan's eyes widened, his composure completely faltering. It wasn't supposed to be like this, he muttered. The deal, the money, everything was supposed to work out. But now, it's falling apart. Sophia's confusion deepened. What deal? What are you talking about? Ryan hesitated, and for the first time, Emily saw him hesitate, as if the weight of his actions was too much to bear. With a bitter laugh, he looked at both women. You're both right, but you still don't see the full picture. I wasn't just married to Emily for the last 10 years. We had a business, a partnership. But I had bigger plans, plans that you two were never meant to be a part of. Sophia stepped back, eyes wide. Business? What business? Ryan rubbed his temples, clearly on edge. The money, the investments, the properties, the deals. I wasn't just with Emily for love. I was with her for what she brought to the table. And when I met you, Sophia, he paused, taking a deep breath. You were supposed to help me finalize everything. It was a calculated risk. Marrying you was part of that plan. Emily's stomach churned. The realization hit her like a slap in the face. Ryan had never truly loved her. He had seen her as a business opportunity, a pawn in a larger game. Sophia's hands trembled. So, everything, the marriage, the wedding, everything was a lie? You never loved me? Ryan winced, guilt flashing across his face. It wasn't like that, I swear. I never meant for anyone to get hurt, but Emily wasn't listening. The pieces were falling into place, and she saw the man Ryan truly was. The charmer, the manipulator, the liar. The person she thought she knew was just a mask. Do you have any idea what you've done? Emily's voice was trembling now, but she held her ground. You've destroyed everything. Not just our marriage, but the trust one ever had in you. You've been playing games with our lives, with people's futures, all for money. Ryan recoiled at her words, but Emily wasn't finished. You never cared about me. You never cared about anyone. This was all just a business transaction to you, wasn't it? Ryan didn't answer. The silence hung thick between them. Sophia, still shaking, turned to Emily. So, what now? What do we do with this? Emily stood tall, her mind working through the consequences of everything she had learned. She had the truth now, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't just about exposing Ryan. It was about taking back control of her own life. This ends tonight, Emily said firmly. You're going to be exposed for everything you've done. The money laundering, the schemes, the lies. I'm not letting you get away with this anymore. Sophia looked relieved, as though Emily's words were a promise of justice. Ryan finally spoke, his voice low and desperate. You can't do this. You'll ruin everything. You don't know what I've put into motion. Emily glared at him. You've already ruined everything. This isn't just your story anymore, Ryan. This is ours. And I'm going to make sure the world knows who you really are. A new beginning. The next few days were a whirlwind. Emily took the necessary steps, contacting lawyers, gathering evidence, and reaching out to people who had been involved with Ryan's schemes. The truth about his dealings, the web of lies he had spun around both her and Sophia, all came to light. The media coverage was relentless. Ryan was exposed for his criminal activity, his manipulation of both Emily and Sophia, and his use of marriage as a means to gain access to wealth and power. The once dominant figure in their lives was now a tarnished name, his empire crumbling around him. But for Emily, the aftermath wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming her life. She didn't need Ryan anymore. She had a new sense of purpose, a fresh perspective. Emily focused on rebuilding herself and her career, making sure that nothing from her past held her back. And in time, she found peace in knowing that she had finally broken free from the man who had taken so much from her. Sophia, too, found strength. She left Ryan, and with Emily's support, she turned her life around. The two women, once bound by the same man's deceit, became allies, friends even. They forged a new path, one where trust was earned, not manipulated. The end. The truth had come out. Ryan had married again, but it was Emily who had the final say in how the story ended. Would you like to explore more stories, or perhaps discuss this one further? Smiling face with smiling eyes.